Hey, this is Angelique Millette, parent educator and a pediatric sleep consultant. Thanks so much for joining me for my quick tips video series. Today's topic is going to be why we don't want to sleep train babies until they're at least 4 to 6 months of age. So when I started working with families about 20 years ago, I actually didn't do any sleep training with babies. I only used no or low cry kinds of methods that we sort of refer to as proximal or parent presence methods. And the reason that I wasn't comfortable using any sleep training was that I just didn't know if it was safe to use sleep training. When I worked with families, I spent about 10 years working at night with families. I call that my field work. I was really able to see all the different ways that newborns develop circadian rhythms and sleep habits and sleep patterns. And I could see that over the course of those 10 years, I could see I had this very incredible experience of seeing over and over and over again that newborns didn't have the ability to self-soothe. They were still developing this ability to self-soothe. Not only that, I could see that their circadian rhythms were still developing as well. And what I mean by that is that their ability to go to sleep at a time of the night that's sort of in line with the time of the night that other babies go to sleep. Newborns just don't do that. They tend to go to sleep much later, and that's because their circadian rhythms aren't fully developed at birth. And it took a good 2 to 4 months for those circadian rhythms to develop. So I spent those first 10 years working with families, really observing babies' self-soothing skills. I really wanted to see, because I wasn't using sleep training, I could really spend the time and watch babies to see when their self-soothing skills started to develop. What I found was that for most babies, starting around the time they were 3, 4, 5 months of age, their circadian rhythms were really organizing around that time. And we would know that that was happening because they started to want to go to bed at a bedtime that's more in line with older babies being like 6 months and older. So that their bedtime started to want to migrate earlier to sometime between 6 p.m. to 8 o'clock p.m. 6 p.m. to 8 o'clock p.m. That migration to the earlier bedtime started to happen around 3, 4 months of age, 3, 4, 5 months of age. And the other thing that I started to see happen is that they would go for a long stretch of sleep from bedtime feed to the first feed of the night. A newborn in those first few weeks might eat every 2 hours or so, but then they started to lengthen out that stretch of sleep to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours from bedtime to the first feed of the night. And that happened within those first 2 to 4 months. The other thing that would happen is that they wanted to be up more during the day. So it was this real consolidation of circadian rhythms, day cycles and night cycles. So awake cycles and then sleep cycles at night. And so the other thing that I looked for was this self-soothing signs. And what I found that babies showed us that over the course of those first 2, 3, 4 months, self-soothing started to develop. So by the time that they were 4 months of age, they could do any number of these 5 self-soothing signs. So the first self-soothing sign is hands and fingers to the mouth. You'll see them suck on their hands and suck, suck, suck with their hands and fingers to the mouth. Newborns can't do that. They try to put a hand or finger in their mouth and they'll hit themselves. They don't have that kind of control yet. But around 3, 4, 5 months of age, you'll see that kind of control. The second self-soothing sign would be hands to midline. If you draw a line down the middle of a newborn's body, that's called midline, and if you try to see a newborn try to bring their hands to midline, they can't do that. They'll just kind of do that. Around 3, 4, 5 months of age, you'll see a baby start to have much more control and organization, and you'll see them do what I call like the little Buddha or the little prayer clasp. Well, they'll hold their hands over midline. They'll even take a levy and hold it over midline. That's self-soothing sign number 2. Self-soothing sign number 3 is burrowing in. That's where they would roll into armpit. And you'll see them do this right before a nap. You might mistaken it for feeding, but what they're doing is they're trying to turn their attention away from all the interesting stimuli in their environment. They're trying to get to a dark place. Armpit's perfect because the smell is familiar to them, the heartbeat's right there, and it's dark. And that's a self-soothing sign. They're trying to turn their attention away. I call that burrowing in, and you'll see them do that right into your armpit or chest. If you were to put them into the crib, you might even see them go into the corner of the crib and burrow in and try to get in a cozy nesting position. That's a self-soothing sign. Newborns don't do that, but starting around 3, 4, 5 months of age, you'll see your baby do that self-soothing sign. The fourth self-soothing sign is a self-soothing cry. It's a little obnoxious when I do it, but it sounds a little like this. It's this, it's kind of this plaintive, whining, fussing cry. It's not the hard cry that a newborn would do if they're overtired and they want to sleep. When a newborn gets overtired, when they're overstimulated, when they're ready to get to sleep, you'll see them ramp up, and it's a hard cry. It's this intense cry. That self-soothing cry starts to develop around the time your baby is between 3 to 5 months of age. Listen for it. If you start to see your baby rub eyes, yawn, start to show you sleep or tired signs, you'll start to hear them do the self-soothing cry. And if you miss it, they'll ramp up and they'll get overtired and they'll do a hard cry. But starting around 3 to 5 months is when you hear that self-soothing cry. The last self-soothing sign that you're looking for is rolling to side or rolling to tummy. That's a self-soothing sign because if you think about it, when babies are in their womb, they're in the C curve, they're kind of in a fetal tuck, and then when they're born, we lay them flat on their backs for safe sleeping, which is exactly what we're supposed to do. We might swaddle them to help them feel more contained and safe, but laying flat on back is not a particularly secure position for a human to sleep in. Naturally, we want to start to get into a fetal tuck position, and your babies will try to move into a fetal tuck position onto their sides or onto their tummies. That is self-soothing. That's their desire to get into a sleep position. That's one that helps them feel more secure, more safe for sleeping. That can happen anytime between ages 2 to 6 months, 2 to 5 months. Once they're putting themselves into their own sleep positions on side or tummy, it's safe to let them sleep in that position, but you want to be sure that they're not swaddled. It would be unsafe for them to be swaddled if they're rolling to side or tummy. So, back to the original point. Why is it unsafe or unhealthy to sleep train a baby that's under 4 to 6 months? The point is that their circadian rhythms haven't fully developed and self-soothing hasn't fully developed until they're at least 4 to 6 months. I've now given you the signs that you're looking for, the 5 self-soothing signs. It's out of my research. It's my work that I love sharing with you. Those are the 5 self-soothing signs that you're looking for that let your babies know that they're ready to sleep train. If they were to cry, they could calm themselves down and put themselves to sleep. And now you know what it looks like if their circadian rhythms are organizing. You want to wait until circadian rhythms have organized and self-soothing is organized before you introduce sleep training. Hope that answers and clarifies questions about when to start to introduce sleep training. I have great results. I see 95 to 99% success rate because I delay the start of sleep training until a baby is actually ready to self-soothe. Thanks so much for listening to the Quick Tips video. Hope the information has been helpful to you.